welcome back to our show. You may have heard of the Fiscal Cliff, which, if the world ends, as the Mayan calendar says, in just a few weeks, will not matter because the whole world will go off a cliff and the fiscal piece won't really be necessary. Welcome back to Brashonomics. I'm Ben Brash, and here alongside Ryan Leopold with Cobalt Mortgage. And we are going to talk a little bit about the fiscal cliff here and how it relates to the world of mortgages. Welcome back, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
I'm real good. You know, it is always interesting to talk about what's going on in the news and relate it simply to, you know, what we do, and which is really mortgages.
Absolutely.
So let's talk. Help us understand maybe the fiscal cliff in a nutshell, and then we'll relate it to mortgages.
Okay, so the fiscal cliff, which is basically this quarter of the year's financial tragedy that we're running into that everybody's excited about, which, you know, they come, seems like in the last couple of years, like 2 or 3 a year.
2 or 3 a year.
And everybody kind of gets through them, and they're blown out of proportion. But, you know, it's a great media story. Great headlines in the news and headlines in newspapers. So with that said, it really is a concern, but it's all about understanding kind of the simplicity of the fiscal cliff and understanding how that's going to affect us locally when it comes to interest rates and our housing market in general. So it's just kind of first is understand kind of the simplicity of what could happen in 2013.
Okay, let's start with the simple version of the fiscal cliff.
Simple version is the Bush tax cuts are set to expire at the end of the year, which basically means taxes across the board for pretty much all income earners are going to go up in 2013 unless a deal is made in the next couple weeks before the end of the year. So simply put, taxes go up. Okay, but part of the raising the debt ceiling last year to kind of postpone all this is part of that agreement was government spending has to come down by the end of the year. And a lot of that government spending has to do with government jobs and defense. So when you start taking away jobs and money that goes into defense, like defense contracts, companies make less money, people have less jobs, and their taxes go up. Those two together creates what we could consider the threat of a recessionary environment again, which just creates consumer confidence going down and less money going into our economy. And our whole economy is based on spending. So if there's less money in there because there's less jobs and more people are taxed more money, that's an issue.
So really you have the potential for a recession. I mean, that's really what the fiscal cliff is. You have lower spending, higher taxes, potential for recession. But when you dial that into real estate and mortgages specifically, I mean, there's not a lot of talk about this, which is kind of interesting to me. But if you just look at the mortgage world to start, where do you feel like the fiscal cliff puts mortgage rates?
I wouldn't say necessarily mortgage rates per se. I'd say the whole kind of buying experience all comes down to consumer confidence. So if someone's looking to buy a home in 2013 and they start feeling this pinch of a little bit less money in their pocket, they feel this concern of taxes going up, and consumer confidence is threatened across the board when people are at the water cooler talking about what their concerns are and what they're hearing on the news, that just gets them a little bit more concerned about buying a home. But I think that really has to be geographically specific, that Seattle is a very unique area with the employers we have here as opposed to other areas of the country. So our last recession didn't hit our housing market as bad as it did in other areas. And if we have a recession again, it's safe to say that when it hit our area, it's quite as bad. Now, on the mortgage interest rate side, when we tend to see recessions, you tend to see lower interest rates. It's harder to believe we can get lower than they are today. But logic says that's the only real recourse that the government has to get out of recessions. I don't know how many bullets they really have left, but they have to throw money at it, print money, offer more debt, and lower the cost of borrowings to get people to borrow more and companies to borrow more to hire more people.
Which there already is a program in place to keep mortgage rates low, which is what we call the QE Unlimited, which is $40 billion a year going into mortgage-backed securities. So it would seem to me that if you have a recession, which means that money's probably going to come out of the stock market, safe haven of mortgage-backed securities, you have the Fed pumping money into mortgage-backed securities, you would have lower interest rates. And I think what I hear you're saying is if you have these lower interest rates, Well, the real question is, are people going to buy houses with lower interest rates, or are you just going to see more refinances because of the consumer confidence? You don't just go buy houses because there's low interest rates, or else more people would be buying houses right now.
Yeah, I mean, the low interest rates, like you said, spur refinancing because people want more money in their pocket. If people have more money in their pocket, they tend to spend more money and feel a little bit more confident, or put more money into savings. Great, again, consumer confidence. Are people going to go out and sell their $400,000 house to buy a $600,000 house? That's the question of consumer confidence and where people feel their security is with their job, in their local economy, with everything else that goes into that.
And I think that's one of the most interesting points that doesn't always get hit is the mortgage world. Mortgage rates are on a national level. And the real estate market is very local. I mean, it's not just Washington. It's not just the greater Seattle area. It's pockets of neighborhoods and whatnot. And so if you have really strong employment, like, say, when Amazon moves into their umpteen million square feet and all these high-paying jobs come in, the reality is that pocket, that area, the commuters that come into there are going to need places to live. So consumer confidence, they may be confident. They may be able to take advantage of a good, strong job market of that pocket of the world and the low interest rates that the national economy provides.
Absolutely. And real estate really is geographically based on exactly all those things, because every community, every county, every market in the country is just different from employers, from the proper kind of houses where they can build. You know, we're restricted by a lot of things here as opposed to areas like Phoenix. So yeah, every area is a little bit different when it comes to the confidence of a community as opposed to other ones. Do
you tend to think that right now people have an opportunity to look forward? I mean, if people take the opportunity to look forward, do you tend to think that with mortgage rates where they are now, I mean, is it still worth refinancing even if rates go down lower? Or do you feel like a lot of people, there's always that greedy, right? You know, the greed of like well, I heard rates might get down to 2.5. I heard rates might get down to 2. And it's amazing how many people sit with loans at 6% or 5% just in order to try to get that little bit lower, not realizing the cost. And if you look at the fiscal cliff and what we're talking about, and you think about rates going lower, that doesn't necessarily mean people should wait.
I think it's all about their situation. A lot of people say on the refinancing side is that they should save at minimum 1% change in interest rate for it to make sense. That's kind of a common misconception that's out there. I think it's always looking at what is your rate now, what could you get, and what is the cost of acquiring that financing, and when is like the break even on it based on how long you plan to be in that home. So if we think rates are going to go lower, and let's look at lower cost options, so that way you're not spending a lot of money but still getting a benefit, because just in case rates do come down in 6 months, you're not going to spending money, like I just spent $4,000. I don't want to spend $4,000 again to save another 0.5%. Spend less money, still get a benefit, and leave that window open for possibly refinancing again, because we really don't know how low rates could get. And we've been saying on the show for about a year now, they can't get any lower, and they have. So you just never know. It's all about setting the right strategy up with the right mortgage professionals.
Yeah, fiscal cliff may mean lower interest rates, you know?
It could.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Then we would toot the old broken record one more time and continue with the all-time low interest rates. Who knows? Maybe they'll make a video out of it.
I like it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us, Ryan. We have to go to break. When we come back, Dave Duncan, Heather Moore are going to join us, and we're going to continue to talk about the end of the world, or at least the holiday season for professionals.